All right, welcome to Cwic Media's Come Follow Me series. We are covering Exodus 14 to 17. This is the epic event of the parting of the Red Sea. I want to back up, just setting the stage a little bit here first, and go to chapter 13, just the end of it here, because I think there's a message here that I gain from these chapters about the role of the Lord in guiding us and watching over us. How involved is He with us? And I know we've already kind of talked about that a little bit, but this is really a really great example of the Lord being involved with our lives and how He becomes involved in our lives. So if we go to chapter 13 and look at verse 21, it says, this is about the children of Israel going through the wilderness. It says, "And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by day and night." So we talked about the smoke and the fire, whatnot there, right? So you've got, in the day, you're going to see the smoke from what's burning there, and at night, you're not going to see the smoke as much. You're going to see the bright fire, of course. But the point here is the representation of the Lord. So the Lord is going before them. And I think that's key in understanding our lives as we go through the wilderness. The Lord is going before us. So we're going to see some murmuring, we're going to see some problems, and yet there they are, where their camp can see always. I say their camp, whether they're moving or whether they're still in a camp, they can see the smoke and the fire. The Lord is always with them, and yet there is still murmuring. So do we forget sometimes that the Lord is always there, that He's always going to watch over us? So 21, "And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud and led them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by day and night." And yet they're going to murmur and stumble. Think again about the Lehites, and they've got the Liahona. They've always got that there to guide them. But for them, it's even more specific to not working when they lose their faith, right? It only works according to their faith. Well, even when you've got the pillar there, knowing that the Lord is there, even if the Lord is there guiding you and wants to open up His arms to you, it doesn't matter if you don't have the faith to trust Him. And that's kind of what I take out of that. So the Lord is with the camp and the children of Israel the whole time. Now we move over to chapter 14. And here we have, let's just go to verse 1. "The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they turn and encamp before Pihahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal Zephon, before it shall ye encamp by the sea." So here's what's interesting. Again, the Lord is telling them to do this, just like the Lord told Moses to free the children of Israel. The Lord is telling them to camp by the sea, and this is where they're going to get into trouble. So you think to yourself, okay, well, if the Lord told them, isn't He going to watch over them? Or at the very least, this is just His desire. This is what He wants. Verse 3, "For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land, the wilderness hath shut them in." So he is getting ready to show the power of the Lord and how the Lord delivers His people, right? Again, this is a material example that we get to use and apply to our spiritual lives. That's the purpose of it. So he says that Pharaoh's going to harden his heart, that he shall follow after them, and I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his host, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord, and they did so. All right, so the king of Egypt here is told that the people have fled, so he's going to run after them with his chariots, with his army. Again, they didn't just leave 3 days and then they're going to come back. They're gone. They are fleeing. So he's going after them. And the Lord has set this up. The Lord has told the children of Israel where to camp. Down to verse 10, "And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. And they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord." All right, so Again, they know the Lord told them to go there. They see the Egyptians, the adversary, opposition coming after them, and they are sore afraid. Okay, well, that's natural, of course. That's a natural feeling, a natural way to be. What can we learn from that? How can we trust in the Lord if we know that he has commanded us to go somewhere, to do something, to follow something? There will be a deliverance eventually, this life or the life to come. And they said unto Moses, here we go, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us to carry us forth out of Egypt? Right? So again, what do we get here? We get the hierarchy of Jehovah and then Moses as the prophet. So they know the Lord has done this and asked this and told them where to camp. They know that the Lord has delivered them. But then they go back to Moses and say, what is up? What have you done to us? Here they come after us. And what is really being said there, if you stop and think about it, is, hey, Moses, what has the Lord done to us? What has the Lord done to us? And there's that lesson of, do we have faith? Do we have faith in what he in the circumstances in which he has set us? And then we get this line here that is just so telling and such a lesson for all of us. I compare this to the war in heaven to some degree. Verse 12, is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. Well, first of all, I don't know that that's true. And second of all, even if that was going to, first of all, I don't know that would be true, that it would be better for them not to die. Second of all, I certainly there's the chance of we have to go out and try this. If you look at, again, the idea of going into mortality, right? Is it, it's better for us to serve someone else that doesn't want us to grow and progress, no matter what, even though there's going to be a cost to this and an adversarial, oppositional force that's going to be against us, that's going to cause death and suffering. So maybe we're better off just serving someone else and being under different rules where the expectations aren't there for us to grow and suffer and to deal with these issues. Or maybe it's worth doing it. Maybe it's worth doing it. Maybe the courage to go out and leave Egypt and not stand for being captive to sin or to low expectations or to a plan that does not offer everything to us in terms of fulfillment and progress. That's the way I look at this. I think that this is a great lesson for us. This is us. And can we allow ourselves to trust in the Lord and trust in the plan? It's not better for us to have low expectations. It's not better for us that everything can be tolerated and that we need to learn, it's not better for us not to learn to obey. It's not better for us not to go through opposition. And as Elder Christofferson just said in General Conference, right? It's required of us to share in the sufferings to some degree on the cross with Jesus if we want growth. And Moses said then in verse 13, and Moses said unto the people, fear not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will shew to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. So there it is. You won't see this opposition anymore. This specific opposition. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Right? In other words, We've come to the camp where he told us to come to. We have obeyed. The Lord will fight for us. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no suffering. They're going to go through the wilderness here. It's going to be very tough. But they're following the will of the Lord, and because of that, they're all going to grow, and they're all going to become. That's the focus of the plan of salvation. In verse 16, again, love this, but lift thou up thy rod, and stretch out thine hand over the sea, and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. So again, I mean, what do you have here? You have the prophet of the Lord with the staff or rod in his hand, representing the priesthood, representing the word, representing the name of God that is going to go and deliver this. So that's the prophet that we listen to and follow. And that gives us our deliverance from the woes and opposition that we face. This is also very typical anciently of any God warrior that would go out and conquer the sea, right? The sea is chaos. And so the priesthood, the order, the DBR, is what is going to order the sea, is what is going to command the sea. The words DBR are going to be spoken DBR and create order DBR over the chaos. Now, we get a little bit more about this. So he's going to raise his rod to divide the sea. In 19, and the angel of God, which went before the camp, there he is. He's there. He's there in our lives. Who went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. So if you can imagine, they're facing likely east and at the sea, whatever that is, wherever that is. And to the west of them, on the other side, come the Egyptians. So they are trapped. So what the Lord does here, the pillar and the cloud, is he's going to leave the side of the sea and go to the backside of them, between them and the Egyptians. In 20, it says, and it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, to the Egyptians. But it gave light by night to these, the children of Israel, so that no one came near the other all night. So you can imagine, right? So if this fire and cloud are behind the children of Israel, between them and Egypt, and there becomes an east wind, which we see here, coming from the east over the sea and then toward the Egyptians, what you have is all of the smoke is going to push into the Egyptians and cause a great darkness, even at night. Let's say it's at night. And yet for the children of Israel on the other side of that, they don't have the smoke coming to them. They just see the fire, and that offers them the light at night, right? So kind of an interesting dynamic here happening. And in 21, and Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind. There it is, the same wind that is causing the smoke to go into the Egyptians' camp, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. Okay, and then the children of Israel are going to go and cross the sea here, and then the Egyptians come through. Obviously, you know the story. They come through, and the divided sea comes back upon them and drowns them. And then the children of Israel see the bodies of the Egyptians wash up onto the shore by them on the other side. Now, this to me, again, is a great example of, look, there's no way out. There is no way out. But the Lord, who is always there, is going to then come in. Let's say he confuses, he obstructs the enemy, he gives light to the camp of Israel, and he provides a way, just like Nephi says, right? The Lord commanded them to go to that camp. He commanded them to go to the camp. He's going to provide a way for them to get out. And I think that's exactly what kind of goes through Nephi's mind here, where he's thinking about, look, the Lord's going to provide a way. 1 Nephi 3:7. It may look impossible. It may not even work at first. But there's going to be a way. There seems to always be a process with these things. Now, at the bottom of the chapter here, in verses 30 and 31, we get something similar in a way to what happens with Pharaoh, with the plagues. The children of Israel are grateful, they're thankful, and then they're going to turn again quickly. And that seems to be the case with us. It's kind of like the pride cycle in the Book of Mormon. They are suffering, there are problems, they pray, they humble themselves, they're given then what? Opportunity and bounty and riches, and then there's problems again, right? Then there are problems again. So here's what 30 and 31 say. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord. In other words, they reverenced him and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. That's key, right? Because remember, they were attacking Moses when really they're attacking the Lord. So let's see what happens next. All right, in chapter 15, we get what is called the Song of the Sea, or the Song of Moses here, although there's also a Song of Moses in Deuteronomy before he leaves, or when he leaves, or is about to leave the camp of Israel and be translated. It says here, Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. Verse 2, The Lord is my strength and song, and he has become my salvation. This is something that is repeated in some prayers and songs in the Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox religions, and in Jewish tradition. It is a poem. I think it goes all the way to verse 18, where we go down and talk about Miriam and the women. It's a poem that is repeated often, and it's in a more archaic Hebrew, which means it could have already been there, and then other things were added around it as the texts were added upon and edited and expounded, perhaps even. But it's a song about, being delivered. Okay, and then down in 20 here, I guess this is more in response to the song. You have Miriam and the sisters of Aaron, and they kind of sing to the Lord, and maybe this is more of a response to the original song that they offer here. So in 22, so Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days, there it is again, in the wilderness and found no water. Remember, the Lord is with them. The Lord just delivered them through water, right? He just delivered them through water. Now there's going to be a problem again. And it's not that I wouldn't have the same problem. I'm there with my family. I have got kids. I've got grandkids maybe. I've got, what is going on here? How am I supposed to? I can't keep going. It's amazing how when you get down to bare necessities, how narrowly focused we become as human creatures. But the lesson again is the Lord, regardless, is going to be with them. That seems to be the lesson all the way through with the children of Israel through the wilderness until they get to the promised land. And of course, a general message for the gospel, period. But verse 23, and when they came to Marah, or Mara, not sure how to say that, they could not drink of the waters of Mara, for they were bitter. So they probably knew where they were going. They were hoping there might be water there. Okay, the Mara means bitterness. So the waters are bitter. It means it's not fresh water. It's not drinkable water. Therefore, the name of it was called Mara. And the people murmured again against Moses. Now this is, in Hebrew, this is Yelonu or Yelona. This would be probably the same word in Hebrew that is being thought of by Nephi as he goes through his problems with Laman and Lemuel. Again, think about the Lehites when you think about the children of Israel. It's a very similar story on purpose. The same things do come up, but Nephi is referencing the Exodus. And so the people murmured against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? So who are they really murmuring against? The Lord is still there with them. The Lord just delivered them. But who do they go to? They go to Moses and criticize him, go after him. And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord shewed him a tree, which when he had cast into the waters were made sweet. So, again, there's a healing of the waters. There's a healing of the waters. There's a deliverance, so to speak, again. There's a purification. And where they have no other options, they're going to die again, or be before it was going to be probably thrown into captivity with the Egyptians. There are no other options. The Lord comes through for them. I've had this experience where there are no options, and yet I know I'm doing what's right. And yes, I probably doubt a little bit here and there in those circumstances, but if I keep going, I've had that experience where the Lord steps in for me in very, very obvious ways. So what does Moses do? Well, here's verse 25 and 26. And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord shewed him a tree, which when he had cast in the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. Right? So they were there to, in a sense, it's being tried. It was being tried to say, hey, I am in charge. Yes, you're going to have issues. Yes, you're going to fall short, but I'm going to be there for you if you follow my commandments. And then verse 26 is great. And Moses says, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, if, right, it's conditional. If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight. There are conditions. It's truth. It's hierarchy. It's revelation. And wilt give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes. I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians. For I am the Lord that healeth thee. Okay, so he's the Lord that healeth thee, but only under those conditions. Only under those conditions do we get that healing. So there is a process of submission. There is a process of humility to God in lowering ourselves before him to hearken to his voice, do what is right, give ear to his commandments, keep all his statutes. And then he will put none of the diseases upon us. That would be the consequences of sin. And the ability to call upon him in times where we really need him. Right? There's probably some spiritual capital that gets built up there. In verse 27, just to call out the numbers here, and they came to Elim, where were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. That's 70. And they encamped there by the water. So the number 12 is obviously significant all the way through Israel, including today. And then the number 70 is also important. We'll bring that up as we go through the Old Testament. And of course, we have the 70 today as well. Now, one thing I want to bring up here again, and I'll do this every once in a while as we go through the Old Testament, because there's such the Book of Mormon is very similar, but there's such a highlight on the prophets, and we see them built up so often as these individuals that are going against the grain, because usually when we are referring to them, or when we were reading about them, what is happening? It's them against the people, typically, or a people. It is an individual against a collective. And I think this is significant in understanding the story and reality of the plan of salvation and ourselves and our own identity. We are both individuals and group creatures. The plan of salvation requires both. Our individuality is our agency and our expression. right? Behavior. And then the group has to do more with family, and then broader with, let's call it a Zion community, everybody else. And you can't escape any of that. If you want a fullness of growth in getting to exaltation, you cannot escape it. You can't skip through the individuality portion of things. And you can't say, well, I just want to deal with things myself, right? I just want myself. I don't need a family. I don't need additional people that I'm supporting and helping. I don't need to build a Zion people. I don't need organized religion. It doesn't work. This goes right along the lines with what I call the 4 phases of the priesthood. Now, if you've followed the podcast at all, then you know that I've talked about this several times. This is one of the interpreters that I use. And as you see here, going from the bottom up, this is the 4 phases that we have to go through. We don't leave any of them behind. But number 1 is agency, right? And number 1 and 2 being you've heard me say before, in my estimation, this is just my estimation, the Aaronic priesthood is the priesthood of the individual to some degree. And the Melchizedek priesthood is the group, or is the priesthood of the group, right? Family and Zion, we can say, or community. So as you go through stage 1, it's your agency. You can't ever leave that behind. And 2 is speech and or expression, behavior, right? And then you move from there up into the Melchizedek phases of the priesthood, where you are now with family. You must have that eventually, at least for exaltation, in this life or the next. And then there's Zion, and building out beyond that, and building up. That's everything from our missionary efforts to charity for others, lifting each other up, and helping to build a Zion people, stretching ourselves, loving each other, gathering Israel. And I think it's a great dynamic in the Old Testament to see these prophets as they kind of go to that individual side. It's them against the grain. It's them against the group. And so we can identify with their agency and their strength and their courage and their faith as what are they trying to do? As an individual, they are trying to build a Zion, right? They're trying to have others, they're sacrificing themselves in many cases to have others in the collective also submit and also apply properly their agency and speech/expression. So you get that dual dynamic there constantly, and really showcased, I think, really well in the Old Testament. Moses here is a perfect example with the children of Israel. All right, chapter 16 now. Here we go again, right? You have the pride cycle in the Book of Mormon. You have the murmuring cycle here in Exodus. Verse 2, and the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said unto them, would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, right, or the pots full of meat, and when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. What kind of an attitude can we take in mortality? What have you done, Lord? Right? Or prophet? Really, Lord. What have you done? Why have you forsaken me? Why have you put me out here in the wilderness? And here I am. I would rather be in a place of comfort where I don't have to have my agency tried so much, where there is no suffering and anguish and emotional turmoil and pain. That's, to me, a direct parallel to the story of the children of Israel. They'd rather have a few of these comforts than have the liberty of choice and growth and worship, right? They couldn't worship. But their basic needs were taken care of, even though they were slaves. And that's what we would have been in the plan that was offered by Lucifer in the plan of salvation. In essence, we would be slaves because there's no full agency. There's no opportunity, which means there's no variability in results. You'll notice a lot of ideologies today are pushing against that again, against variability and agency, to some type of a forced equity. So do we just want the comforts, or do we want the growth? Because growth means a little bit of pain. Growth means a more difficult but fulfilling route. The wilderness is difficult, but well worth it. So after complaining about this, in verse 4, then said the Lord unto Moses, behold, I will rain bread. So I'm going to take care of you again, right? I'm still going to take care of you here. We're going to take care of things. You're going to make it through. I'm always here. It's not easy, but I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them, right? Whether they will walk in my law or no. That is the point of us being here. It's not comfort. It's not... I'm going to say something here. Sometimes I wonder about the term, the law, the plan of happiness. I fully support it. I try to grapple with that a little bit sometimes. It's, to me, I think of the plan of fulfillment, enrichment, of empowerment, of having all that the Father has and all that is possible for us as creatures. That doesn't mean we're going to be happy right now. And I know that's what they mean, right? I know that's what they mean, that it's an ultimate type thing here, but that it's joy, right? It's driven by a type of joy that may not be with you today. But that's the point, that we will be proven whether we will walk in my law or no. We get that opportunity every day to choose what we're going to do. So the Lord's going to take care of them. He's going to offer them the manna in the mornings that's there each morning. I think that's coriander seed that they end up gathering. And then they're also going to have, have a pot that is collected there and was held in the Ark of the Covenant. And then they're going to have the quail at night, right? So the Lord offers the substance to them to keep moving forward. And of course, he does the same thing for us. And a great representation of this is the sacrament that we get every week. Again, it's a spiritual parallel to what the Lord is doing here for the children of Israel. And then this is key here. And this is something you see right now, especially every general conference. And Moses said, this shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, for that the Lord heareth your murmurings which ye murmur against him. And what are we? This is Moses and Aaron basically. Your murmurings are not against us, but they're against the Lord. That's a great lesson right there. Pull that direct from the scriptures. And at the bottom of the chapter, verse 35, and the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years, maybe 42, until they came to a land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan, or the promised land. That's the Lord is going to sustain you. The Lord is going to give you substance, and he's going to spiritually do that for you if you follow the conditions. All right, then lastly here in chapter 17, and all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Here we go again. And this is, I think we get into these positions often because we need to be proven. I know I do. These things I keep getting nudged, right, in my life. I keep getting proven. What are you going to do now, Greg? Here we go. Here's a little bit of a curveball. Here's a curveball again. What are you going to do? Wherefore the people, and a lot of people don't like that. I don't like it, but a lot of people become bitter because of that. Not understanding that it was our choice to come down here and go through those things so that we could learn and grow. That's the only way to do it. So verse 2, because of the water, wherefore the people did chide with Moses and said, here they're after Moses again, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? It's like, look, I'm not in control here. Right? I'm not in control. Think about the things that have just recently been said in conference. Who do we really believe is in control? It's not that they're not speaking through humans, but you've got a values hierarchy here that you're going to put more emphasis on revelation or on reason. And we want reason. Reason's important. Reason's necessary to get the revelation, I think. But do you believe that Joseph Smith was a prophet? Do you believe that President Nelson is a prophet? Do you believe in revelation? So verse 3, and the people thirsted there for water, and the people murmured against Moses. Here we go again. It's just like, again, Laban and Lemuel over and over again, and said, wherefore is this that thou hast brought us out of Egypt? Again, we long to be put back in the crib. We long to be put back in a place where we don't have the responsibility to try and grow with faith. And that's a harsh thing to say. Who am I to say it? I wasn't in that situation. But that's the lesson we're being told here in the scriptures. That's what the prophets are telling us. And they said, wherefore is this that thou hast brought us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? This is what Laman and Lemuel said. Well, remember when they were in the wilderness and they had no food. And look how our women have suffered. Hey, look, I'm not going to judge in that circumstance. All I'm talking about here is the lesson that is given in the words of the scriptures and by the words of the prophets. And so Moses is like, look, Lord, what do I do here with this people? They're about to stone me. And that's happened several times in the history of Israel. They stone the prophets. So again, the Lord is going to use the authority, his name that was given to Moses on Mount Horeb or Sinai, the rod, and he's going to show the authority again and his involvement with their lives. Verse 5, and the Lord said unto Moses, go on before the people and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod, wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand and go. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb. All right, where are we at? And thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. Now here in verse 7, we should refer to these names more often because this really gives us an understanding of our plight here in mortality and how to handle things, to try and handle things better. Verse 7, and he called the name of the place Masha. Masha it means to be proven. And Meribah. Meribah is complaining, murmuring, because of the chiding of the children of Israel and because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? What a great rhetorical question there that Moses puts in place. It's not rhetorical for the children of Israel, but it is for Moses. Moses knows. And here, again, they know everything that has already happened with them. They know the commandments that have happened, the delivery that's been given to them. Have you ever been delivered from something? Has the Lord answered your prayer? Have you felt the Spirit? Have you been given a conversion experience and a spiritual experience? Is the Lord with you? Even in your trials, is the Lord with you? Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. Okay, before I move on here to this little story of Amalek, this is an interesting name. And there is a common teaching in LDS scholarship about the Mulekites that goes something like this. Remember that Grandpa Mosiah leaves the land of Nephi, goes wandering, probably finds the breastplate and the Urim and Thummim right there on their way there, and then ends up in Zarahemla. Well, Zarahemla is occupied by whom? By the Mulekites. They are at least partially, maybe mostly, maybe completely Judahites, right? They come from the tribe of Judah because they come from the son of Zedekiah, Mulek. And there's a little bit perhaps of a power play there between, like we've been talking about with the children of Israel, the sons of Israel, between Joseph, to the Josephites, and the blessing that was given to Joseph and his sons, and the Judahites. The Judahites become the kings of Judah, like David. And it is kind of the Israelites. The Ephraimites become the kings of the northern kingdom of Israel. So there's some rivalry there. Well, this is what you may have in Zarahemla. You have the Manasseites, and really kind of Ephraimites, probably a blend of both, who are the Nephites. And you have a certain lineage there of the Nephites that are always in charge. They are the chief judge and the kings, right? So it's based on lineage. At least to some degree, right? They're always in that lineage. There may be options there, but it's in that lineage of Nephi. And so the teaching goes something like this. Well, the dissenters, Amlici, the Amalekites, the Amalekiahites, there is another one I'm trying to think of. Anyway, the dissenters that have these names of MLK in them are somehow tied to the Mulekites because of that power struggle. I don't know if that's true. I don't think it is. And I know that's pretty broad out there, so many of you have probably heard that. I think it goes right back to here, to Amalek. Amalek is a thorn in the side of the children of Israel for a very long time, the Amalekites. And I think it comes from the Amalekites. And this is obviously something that would have been a strong heritage and understanding of the Lehites when they left Jerusalem. They would have these stories. They would know about the Amalekites. Their fathers may have fought the Amalekites, even besides here in the Valley of Sin. It's not MLK here in the words, I don't believe. It is AML. Those are the letters, which means something more along the lines of bloodthirsty or bloodsuckers. And they are the dissenters. I did an episode on this a while back. If you're interested in that, you can take a look at that. But I think that right here in this Exodus is where we really get the heritage of the names of the dissenters of the Nephites. In fact, even today, the Jews will there's kind of a feeling of, okay, if someone's a real evil and opposing them, they'll call them an Amalekite, or they're like an Amalek. Those that fought in Babylon, who fought Esther and Mordecai, they call them. There are references of the Jews for hundreds of years calling them Amalekites, or an Amalek figure. Anyway, going on to verse 9 here. And Moses said unto Joshua, choose us out men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in mine hand. There's the rod again, right? This is the rod from Horeb, from Sinai. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him and fought with Amalek, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur. We don't get a whole lot about Hur in the scriptures here. And Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. So what is he lifting up? What is he doing? He's got the rod there. What is that? That is the priesthood. It's the name of Jehovah. And he needs those that are there to sustain him. So we can kind of look at that kind of like a first presidency, or other leaders of the church, or you and I, right? The Lord cannot work through a prophet effectively without others sustaining him. If everyone just kind of rebelled against the prophet, I mean, it's too bad for us, and it's too bad for the prophet, I guess, but that doesn't work, right? Eventually we have to turn and submit to the fluid hierarchy. That doesn't mean we're all in and we're just yes men and women, but it means that we sustain. And so here we sustain, and when we sustain, the Lord wins and the Lord's people win. As we're told here in verse 12, but Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him. And he sat thereon, and Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua discomfited Amalek, or the Amalekites, and his people with the edge of the sword. And then we get this about the memorial here again, something that needs to be remembered. And the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book. This is why it's done. And rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. For I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. You can see the bitterness about Amalek here, right? It's kind of like you're not ever going to see the Egyptians again. They've washed up on the shore. And you're not going to worry about them going through the wilderness ever again. All right, here's the same kind of idea. I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. I think I'm right on this. And then the last verse 16, just confirms this with Amalek. It says, for he said, because the Lord hath sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. And so in a sense, to me in the Book of Mormon, they continue to have this war with Amalek. I'm doing air quotes here, right? So this is the great lesson, I think, that we get from these chapters, that the Lord is involved. And he's there. And if we are doing what he says, like Nephi says, 1 Nephi 3:7, he's going to create a path for us. He's going to do whatever needs to be done for us to fulfill the commandment of what he has commanded us to do. And it might not be easy. I mean, Nephi going to Jerusalem had to go back 3 times to try and get the brass plates, and had to kill Laban to do it. And had to run for his life at the end there, practically. So it's not that it's going to be easy, right? But he's going to find a way for us to accomplish the things that he wants or commands us to accomplish. He is involved in our lives. I need to recognize that more, I know. He is there with the pillar of fire and of smoke walking along with us. And if we will simply submit and not murmur and complain against his mouthpiece, being the prophet, and that we will sustain him in understanding that when we complain against him, we're complaining against the Lord. That's really what we're doing. Not that he's not perfect, or not that he's perfect. The prophet's not perfect, but he is the Lord's servant. That's a process. That whole idea of hierarchy is so key, where we can insert ourselves into a fluid hierarchy by submission. That's what baptism means. Going into the kingdom of God is submitting. And that's a good thing. That's what the Savior taught us. He submits to the Father. And not only submits to the Father, he lowers himself below us even, to lift us and to support us. That's called charity. That's called the love of Christ.